Good morning. Welcome into 5 Clubs on Golf Channel, also on the PGA Tour Radio Network on Sirius XM. I am Gary Williams. Great to have you with us on this Monday morning. This program is always proudly brought to you by Century Insurance, right by you, and also our 3 North Carolina-based companies, Golf Pride. Every player at every level trusts Golf Pride more than any grip in the world. Of course, Peter Millar, I have proudly represented that brand since 2011. Luxury, style, and function. They've been refining it for more than 2 decades. And Pinehurst Resort, when it comes to going places and exploring all that golf can offer you on and off the golf course, the cradle of American golf is Pinehurst Resort. All right, we got a Monday finish at the Players. Are you kidding? For the next hour, we get to lead you into this 3-hole aggregate playoff with Rory McIlroy and J.J. Spaun. And it's interesting because it is St. Patrick's Day. It's also my daughter's birthday. We call it St. Addie's Day around my house. But 96 years ago, Bobby Jones, who was born on this day in 1902, showed up at the 1929 U.S. Amateur. He had won it in back-to-back years in 27 and 28. He was the reigning U.S. Open champion as well, having won at Winged Foot. And you're going, oh, come on. I mean, he was the co-medalist by 13 shots over the guy he played in the opening round, Johnny Goodman. I don't know what Johnny Goodman's odds were that day on DraftKings. He beat Bobby Jones 1-up on the 18th hole at Pebble Beach. You just don't know. The vagaries of match play are fantastic. That's why this 3-hole aggregate playoff today, playing in a totally different wind than what they had faced over the previous 4 days. It's going to be blowing out of the northwest today. Stiffly downwind on 16, the par 5, the first hole that they're going to play, and then back into the wind on the par 3 17th, and of course the closing hole, the par 4 18th. So a totally different wind. Very low humidity this morning. They're going to start at 9 o'clock. We're going to lead you right up until the start of that 3-hole playoff. And again, if they are still tied after those 3 holes, they'll go back to 17 and then go to 18 again. So here you have Rory McIlroy, who got into this playoff by doing a lot of things well, nothing necessarily exceptional. And then you have somebody in J.J. Spaun who has won 1 time on the PGA Tour back in 2022 at the Valero Texas Open. And he is somebody who's having a very good season. He's got a second, he's got a third. But what he did this week was really playing well above his level in certain areas that he is not necessarily associated with those areas being strengths around the green. And that was on display in particular when he made what was a crucial birdie on the par 4 16th, the same hole that Roy did not take advantage of. So when we were coming down the stretch yesterday, Rory McIlroy had a 3-shot lead with 6 holes to go. And J.J. Spaun had a putt on the 18th hole to actually win this championship in regulation. And he left it right on the doorstep. So here you have somebody with 27 career wins on the PGA Tour, a global golf icon, and a 1-time winner on the PGA Tour. And like I said, this is a 3-hole aggregate playoff. And rightfully, we should all be sitting here going, yeah, Rory's the favorite. I will just remind you, beyond my little anecdote about Bobby Jones on his birthday on St. Patrick's Day, Tiger Woods lost to Nick O'Hearn twice in the match play. Peter O'Malley, Lucas Beauregard, Charles Howell III. These things happen. So when this is over, we're going to make declarative statements about this means this for that guy, and it means this for the other guy. How much weight those things have remains to be seen. All I know is that these are not ideal circumstances. I know that there are a lot of media members who were dying lousy to get out of Jacksonville last night. But you know what? This is found money on St. Patrick's Day. Speaking of those media members, somebody who is a regular contributor here to 5 Clubs, one of the best young writers covering the game of golf for The Athletic, is going to join me now from the Media Center, as well as Johnson Wagner will be later on, as well as John Wood. I'm speaking, of course, of Gabby Herzig. She joins me now to get ready for this playoff. Good morning. How are you?
Morning, Gary. We're back bright and early on a Monday morning. Free golf.
Yeah, exactly. I know that you have a later scheduled flight. Hopefully that doesn't have to be adjusted at all. Let's start with J.J. Spaun. I believe you were in the room on Saturday night when he came in. These are infrequent visits for someone like J.J. Spaun, particularly as a 54-hole leader, and specifically this championship. This is the deep end of the pool. and he started talking about his own ceiling and not knowing how good a player he could be. What struck you most about what he shared with the media on the eve of that final round?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Gary. This is a player who is ranked 57 in the world. He has one career win in 227 starts. He's not used to doing this kind of stuff. J.J. was brought into the main media center at TPC Sawgrass, sat in front of probably 100 media members, and very graciously shared that he wasn't groomed to be a professional golfer. He doesn't know how high his ceiling is. He's kind of walking into uncharted territory right now. So I think it showed a lot of courage from J.J. to open up when he has so much on the line here. This would be a career-altering win for him, and he's going to kind of go out and get it today. He said, he's not expected to win. Everyone expects Rory McIlroy to win. He was very honest about that, but he shared that he expects himself to win, and I thought that was super powerful.
With 6 holes to go, he's facing a 3-shot deficit. The atmosphere had been altered because of the long delay. There weren't as many people out there. Did you get the sense that it was a question of how high he was going to finish and that he was not going to win? Did a lot of people think that he was out of the golf tournament with 6 to go?
I definitely think it was a thought. It was a murmur. The leaderboard yesterday, it was Rory McIlroy and a bunch of guys that didn't have that same horsepower, the same experience that a guy like Rory has. And it was kind of just this ticking time bomb of who was going to fall off. But JJ really stuck up there. He plodded along, as he said in his post-round interview, made some ridiculous par saves. I even go back to Saturday evening when he made that amazing 30-footer on the 18th green to stay at 12 under par and just be up there with those guys. So JJ has really showed that he's not backing down. He hasn't looked incredibly frazzled at any point in this tournament, hasn't made any huge numbers, massive mistakes. He's really just stayed the course.
As far as Rory goes, having won at Pebble Beach and doing it in a different way, there wasn't total liberty with the driver. There was a sense of refinement that I think was telling. Now, here he is again. He hasn't necessarily been great at one particular thing any day, but has been very good on different days with different clubs in his bag. If he does win this for the second time, what type of overall statement do you think this makes?
I think this has absolutely been a little bit of a strange week for Rory. The driver has been so inconsistent. He hit only 4 fairways on Thursday, 5 on Saturday, 7 yesterday. He's been spraying it a little bit, and his other clubs have had to make up for it. It's like when one problem goes away, another arises for Rory. But I think this win would definitely mark, his ability to play without his best stuff, to really make things happen when he doesn't have his A game. And that's something Rory has spoken about before that he really admired about Tiger Woods, is that he was able to win and go out there without his best stuff. So this would be a huge win for Rory, probably his biggest win since the 2022 Tour Championship or even his 2019 Players Championship victory. But again, he's in such good form this season. The win at Pebble was striking, and then the performance here when he's just not hitting it that straight off the tee. It would be impressive either way, but he definitely needs this one for that confidence going into the major season.
Gabby, you know this, the best players, there are referendums that we make literally round to round. It's not to the Tiger level, but with him, he's the guy who did have the 3-shot lead with 6 to go, which included playing a par 5. And even though he was in the right rough, he didn't take advantage of it. He made par on the 16th hole. If he doesn't, it ain't fair, but what will be said if he doesn't close this against a guy that, again, it's 3 holes. Anything can happen. If he doesn't win, what do you think the overall refrain is going to be?
I think there are definitely some notes of, Pinehurst, LACC. There have been these big moments where Rory just doesn't go out there and close the door. And I think there will definitely be chatter about that if he doesn't pull this off today. But again, I just want to emphasize how great he's playing this season, how in form and in shape he looks compared to the other top 2 players in the world, as Scottie Scheffler and Xander Schauffele are not in their best form right now. And Rory really has this opportunity, and he's taking advantage of it. So I do think that it'll sting. It'll be a narrative of what Rory does in these high pressure situations where he just seems to kind of let things go and miss opportunities. I point to the 16th hole, that perfect opportunity to get up and down there for birdie last night, and he just couldn't get it done. But again, he's in such good shape right now, in such good form. The swing changes that he made in the offseason are proving to really hold up in the moments that he needs them to, and I think we should just remember that.
The putt on 18 yesterday, I believe that players lean on certain things and they can also be debilitated by certain things. I don't know where you were when that putt wrapped in. I would imagine you were around other people who cover this sport. You felt the gravity of that putt, a make or a miss, did you not?
100%. I mean, I was feeling the heart palpitations like we all were. It was very much in that range where it's not totally in the safe zone, a 4.5 footer with all that pressure on the line. And I think you're 100% right. Our brain is designed to protect us from, past painful experiences. And those kinds of putts are exactly that for Rory. And the fact that he was able to lip it in, I thought, was the lucky break that he needed in that moment.
Last thing, in terms of conditions this morning, low humidity, temperatures by the time they get to that 16th tee at 9 a.m. Eastern time, hovering maybe just below 60 degrees with a totally different wind. I'm going to ask this if Johnson, Wagner, and John Wood are going to be on the golf course. Does it feel different out there? Does it feel like it was early in the week again when that system had blown through on Monday of last week and created much cooler temperatures, similar as it was last Tuesday, Wednesday?
Yeah, it's definitely a little chillier this morning. I also walked by the player workout facility, and J.J. Spaun was getting a little early morning lift or stretch in. It's definitely going to be a fun morning this morning. The conditions are a little different, as you said, to the weekend temperatures. And Rory mentioned last night, it's going to take 5 good swings. We've got 3 holes here. The aggregate is a super interesting format, and I'm excited to see what happens.
Last thing about Rory, if he does in fact win this, it is a position of momentum specifically to the PGA Tour he's never experienced before, and that would be 2 wins before the Masters tournament. And it's not just 2 wins. Like we've been discussing, it's at a place, yes, where he's won before, but there are limitations. He's almost playing with somewhat of a governor. Pebble Beach would be similar. Does he lay down a marker with this win and make himself the target definitively at Augusta National?
I don't know if that target is going to be removed from Scottie Scheffler's back for a while. Number 1 player in the world by a significant margin. I'm pretty sure if Rory won 2 majors, he wouldn't even catch Scottie. So there's definitely a target on the number 1 player in the world's back. But I think Rory is for sure, like I mentioned earlier, the best informed player of those top 3 in the world right now. And he comes into the major season in a very strong position. The Masters has obviously been a weak spot for him over the years. He's contended, but never been able to pull off that green jacket win. And I think he's coming into those few weeks in preparation with some real confidence, no matter what happens today.
It's a good way to spend the morning on St. Patrick's Day. I hope it resolves itself. You make your flight out of here. Thank you as always.
Thank you, Gary. Appreciate it.
All right, there's Gabby Herzig, contributor here at 5 Clubs, and also one of the best young writers covering the sport at The Athletic. We're going to take a break. I mentioned Johnson Wagner. He's going to join us. Can he do any more on the golf course? We're going to get his preview of what we might expect, and also the strategy of match play. Even though it is an aggregate 3-hole playoff, we know that in terms of if somebody gets to that 17th tee with a 1-shot advantage by virtue of what happens on that opening hole, we also know that the hole locations are the same. So that back right pin on 17 into the wind, does it force somebody who might be facing a deficit with only 2 holes to go to take something on? A lot to discuss. Johnson Wagner, John Wood with us as well. Plus, we will get to that leaderboard, things that have been resolved. There were some tremendous stories, as Gabby alluded to, in terms of who was on that first page. And one other thing that I'm going to point out before we're done, and again, leading you right up until 9 a.m. for that 3-hole aggregate playoff right here on Golf Channel and also over on Peacock, is that J.J. Spaun is not dissimilar from a lot of players historically, starting in 1982, who have found themselves with a chance to win this with modest profiles. It speaks to something greater as it relates to the PGA Tour. I'll share that as well. It is a Monday morning. It is St. Patrick's Day. It is 5 Clubs right here on Golf Channel on the PGA Tour Radio Network, leading you right up to 9 a.m. in the aggregate 3-hole playoff of the 51st players with Rory McIlroy and J.J. Spaun. We're back with you right after this. Welcome back in on this Monday. Yes, the Players, the 51st edition, the three-hole aggregate playoff right here on Golf Channel, top of the hour, and also over on Peacock. This segment of Five Clubs is brought to you by Golf Pride, the most trusted grip by every player at every level around the world. Joining me now from behind the 17th tee at the stadium course, where they will play the second of what will be a three-hole aggregate playoff. They may see it more than once if they are still tied after those three holes. Is Johnson Wagner. I know it was a late night, it's an early morning, but you're pumped for this, are you not?
Gary, one of the things I've learned about the TV world is that we don't like playoffs because we all have to stay a little bit longer, but I'm fired up, and people are starting to fill in out here at 17. Rory McIlroy, J.J. Spaun. It's a true David and Goliath. And by the way, Gary, I love your tie.
It's St. Patrick's Day. Come on. I gotta have a little flavor here. You're right, Johnson, look, 27 wins to 1, earnings of 99 million to 14 million. We can go on and on and on and on. But you know this. But look, we can talk about 18-hole matches and the vagaries of that. This is three holes. This is three measly holes in a win that's totally different. So let's give everybody a sense of how different these holes are going to play, starting with the par 5, 16th.
Yeah, yesterday, actually all weekend, we had a southeast wind, and today it's coming out of the north. So 16 playing into the wind yesterday, it's downwind. So I am very interested to see if Rory hits driver off of 16. Personally, if I was caddying for him, I would say it's a 3-wood, and he could probably hit 7-iron in today with the 3-wood off the tee. There is no need for Rory to pull driver on 16. We saw it last night into the wind. He hit driver through the fairway into that thick rough, and when he had that iron in his hand going for the green, he was waiting. I was like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Please don't hit. Please don't go for the green. And he did, but I think Rory's going to hit 3-wood or even 3-iron off of 16T.
We know that the pin locations will be the same as they were for the final round yesterday. So let's talk about front right downwind. Every player, including the two guys in this playoff, were in very, very similar areas after their second shots yesterday. You went back out there last night and pointed out that J.J. Spaun was down grain and Rory was more into the grain. J.J. hit a great shot. Here's the thing that's impressed me most, Johnson, about him. He's 129th in strokes gained around the green this season. He's 5th this week, and at a time where he absolutely needed 4 more than any other time in his life, he pulled off a brilliant chip. Give me a sense of, if it is a left miss in 2, the difficulties of chipping to that pin front right.
It's really, if you're in the fairway like J.J. Spaun and Rory, they both were in the fairway. It's a pretty basic chip. You just have to control the contact. You have to control the spin. I would take myself, if I was playing in this playoff, I would be in that same exact spot. That is the absolute ideal miss. Now, if you're in the rough over there or the bunker, it's a little bit different. But in that fairway left where they both were last night, it's a perfect spot to be. Something tells me, though, Gary, they're going to be a little more aggressive. If you're in the fairway, greens are still soft. If you're in that fairway, somebody's going to take that flag on and maybe hit one tight.
The 17th hole, let's say somebody takes an advantage of a shot by virtue of what happens on 16 to the 17th tee. 1, they'll have the honor. 2, they've got a 1-shot lead. How much does that change strategy if that first player now into the wind hits it to 15 feet? What kind of pressure and what does that force the other player to possibly have to take on to that back right pin?
Gary, it is humming into the wind right now on 17, and it is cold. I still think, even if you're one down on 17th tee, that's a hard pin to take on into this wind. You can lose this golf tournament with one swing if you rinse it here on 17. I think you got to play it left. You got to play it 15 to 20 feet left. If you somehow have the spin that takes it down there. But another thing to look out for, last night after the rain delay, Scheffler, everybody that was hit, Akshay hit a beautiful shot into the green. Rory hit a beautiful shot into the green. That green spinny, so coming into the wind, if you hit it with a full club, it is going to rip back, and we're going to potentially see somebody this morning spin it off the green into the water. So I think you've got to be concerned about spin control. You got to take it 15, 20 feet left, and it is a completely different shot. We may see a 9-iron this morning.
One thing about yesterday, to your point about the amount of spin and now into the wind, the idea of one, if not both of those players having to putt from the front of that putting surface through that ridge that runs through the right side and the edge of that green. J.J. Spaun did that yesterday, did it expertly. Can he lean on that as far as his short-term memory if he finds himself in that position again?
That is one of the most brutal two putts on this golf course, on the front edge of that green, putting to that right side. J.J. Spaun, yes, absolutely, he can lean on that. I think in this situation, either guy, if they could just place the ball on the green, they would be happy. Gary, it's humming out here right now. If you can guarantee land on this hole, you will be happy.
Let's get to the closing hole. Don't know, obviously, what we're going to be looking at in terms of where they are in relation to each other. Yesterday, Rory hit iron off that tee and hit a brilliant tee shot. J.J. Spaun hit it through the fairway, was right on the edge of the pine straw. Rory McIlroy has experience hitting driver there. He did it in the final round in 2019, little bit into off the right back then when he went on and won. And I remember Paul Azinger kind of questioning and then committing, saying that's his greatest strength. He should hit driver. Do you get the sense, let's say they're all square going to that last hole, that the iron off the tee is not the play?
Iron will not be hit off the 18th tee. If Rory hits iron off the 18th tee, he will be hitting that into the green. It is directly in, blowing a little bit out of the left on 18. It is a driver. J.J. Spaun will not be able to get it through the fairway on the right side like he did yesterday. It is. I can't tell you how different the conditions are. This is going to be really fun to watch these guys. 18 now. Yesterday, down off the right, easiest wind you can have. Today, in off the left, most difficult tee shot on planet Earth. That water is all along that left-hand side, obviously, and I think you got to step up and you got to execute. And don't be surprised if you see both of them in that right rough.
Johnson, the resume makes Rory McIlroy the favorite, understandably. He had a 3-shot lead with 6 to go, and J.J. Spaun was 3 back with 6 to go. It is really weird to declare momentum in golf, particularly when you're going to a 3-hole aggregate playoff. Give me a sense of how each player probably left the property last night.
Rory McIlroy has everything to lose, and J.J. Spaun has everything to gain. J.J. he's in a playoff. It's the best thing about being in a playoff. You're going to finish second. You don't care what happens. Rory McIlroy has everything to lose, and I think the pressure is solely on him right now. And I think, Gary, I wouldn't be surprised to see J.J. Spaun come out, take some chances early, and get this thing done. I love Rory, but this is like stressful for him right now.
The totality of how they both have gotten here. Let's start with J.J. Spaun. What's impressed you most? One, he hasn't been here very often, but he's having a very good season. He's got a second, he's got a third. He's played very well, and he's played a lot. He's played twice as many PGA Tour events. Rory played a couple in the Middle East on the DP World Tour. What has impressed you most about J.J. Spaun over the course of 72 holes?
I mean, I go back to the Sony Open. It was the Sony Open in Hawaii back in early January was J.J. Spaun's to win. Had it not been for Nick Taylor and Nico Echeverria doing incredible things on the 18th hole, we would be talking about J.J. Spaun trying to win his second tournament this season. Then he backed it up with a T2 at the Cognizant Classic at PGA National. Like J.J. Spaun, it's weird. He has this calmness about him. I know he doesn't give us a lot when it comes to fist pumps and emotion. J.J. Spaun looks ready to win this golf tournament. I'm blown away with the way he finished his round yesterday. The tee shot on 18, the second shot, the putt. His putt on 18 last night was gutted. Had it had two more revolutions, it was in. J.J. Spaun is showing us something that he's never shown us before. He is ready to win, and he's ready to win at a stage like this at the Players. Look at this place. It's incredible. incredible.
No, it is. I will also add his second to 14 on a hole historically, which has been one of the most difficult holes, forget there, in championship golf. He hits one of the great shots of his life under the circumstance, and then the up and down on 16. Now, for Rory, what has stood out in terms of what he has done over the course of 4 rounds?
Well, Rory's putter this week has been unbelievable. And back to J.J. Spaun, that shot on 14 you mentioned, that was the closest shot of the week. It was the closest approach of the week into 14. Historically, the most difficult hole on the golf course. Playing into the wind, out of the left. He hit it to this. But Rory, as far as Rory goes, Rory's putter has been rock solid this week. And when I look back at Rory and I think about Pinehurst, he missed that little putt on 16. He missed that little putt on 18. I think Rory's got something to prove. I think he wants to quiet the critics, and Rory's putter has held him in this thing. Yesterday on 18 for par, it was 4 feet 4 inches. It was not a tap in for that 2 putt that he made from the front of the green. Rory's putter, he's been leaning on it all week. He's going to lean on it again this morning. And by the way, as I'm sitting here talking to you, this wind is picking up. It is getting colder, and it's whipping. I can't wait to see these guys hit on 18. I can't wait to see them hit on 16, much less 17. But that 18th tee shot is going to be brutal this morning, G-Dub.
Last thing, you mentioned the short putt on 18. It can't extinguish the embers of the misses at Pinehurst. However, it can be fortifying, especially if he wins. If he wins that, at the end of the year, is it possible we look back on that putt on 18 as maybe the most important stroke of his entire year?
With that, well, I mean, when we talk about Rory, it's ultimately going to come back to the Masters, right? I mean, this is such a stepping stone for him, and I know you and I've had the conversation. Rory will not win a major before he wins the Masters, blah, 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 blah. He's got to win one before. This is, in my opinion, this is a major championship. This golf course, this place. He goes out and takes care of this. I'm picking Rory at Augusta.
Yeah, Johnson, my point is, and I know you get it, it's not that it becomes more important than him making a 10-footer at the Masters, but my point is the likelihood of him doing those things, I think it's amplified because of that putt under the circumstances yesterday. Remains to be seen. Listen, enjoy it. I know you will. You know what I'm looking forward to? You being right here tomorrow morning.
Let's go, G-Dub. I got a 5.5-hour car ride home. I'm happy that I drove down and don't have to change my flight. I can't wait to see you tomorrow.
All right, there's Johnson Wagner live from behind 17 as he's sitting there and he's talking. You can hear it. The wind is just ripping dead into, which is a totally different circumstance than what they dealt with over the course of the 4 days of the championship. We come back. John Wood still to follow. Plus, I've got some thoughts on some other results that I want to get to as we lead you to the top of the hour. And again, the 3-hole aggregate playoff, not only here on Golf Channel, but also on Peacock as well. Rory McIlroy, J.J. Spaun, we're back with you on this Monday, not only here on Golf Channel, but you can listen. If you're leaving the house right now, put on Channel 92 on Sirius XM on the PGA Tour Radio Network. Back right after this. Welcome back into 5 Clubs, taking you right to the top of the hour in the 3-hole aggregate playoff of the 51st Players Championship at the Stadium Course. I am Gary Williams. Great to have you with us. This segment is brought to you by Peter Millar. For more than 2 decades, they've been refining luxury, performance, and style. Everything I have worn for the last 14 years is Peter Millar, right down to this St. Patrick's Day tie and matching pocket square. It's the truth. All right, what happened yesterday to get us to where we are is obviously going to be centered on J.J. Spaun and Rory McIlroy, rightfully so. And of course, the playoff is coming up at the top of the hour, starting on the par 5 16th. But as we take a look at this leaderboard, it represents a number of things. 1, great stories to begin with in the broadest sense, but 2, depth of the professional game and also how styles make fights. Yes, it's McIlroy and Spaun, but look beyond that. Tom Hoge shot 66 yesterday, one of the great ball strikers in the game, to vault all the way up into a tie for 3rd, with Akshay Bhatia, who has clearly figured out an effective way to putt. His ball striking has never been questioned. Lucas Glover, he's finished third in this championship before he's done it again. Lucas Glover goes from 30th to 13th in the FedEx Cup standings. Corey Connors, another elite ball striker. Danny Walker is not only a good story, he's a great story. He was 125th in the FedEx Cup standings to start the week, and now he's projected to 46th. Danny Walker was not in this field until 90 minutes before his tee time on Thursday morning because Jason Day, who was in a featured group pairing alongside Wyndham Clark and Jordan Spieth, had to withdraw from the event. So all of a sudden, here he is on the 10th tee to start this Players' Championship, and 4 days later, he finishes in a tie for 6th, and now his entire year is set up. Speaking of great stories, Bud Colley was 128th in the FedEx Cup standings after 3 years dealing with the persistent and very deliberate and difficult challenges of a car accident. So much so that he has gone back and forth on trying to get himself even close to 100%. And he only had a finite number of starts to figure out a way to be fully exempt going into next year. Well, he's taken care of that. He may have known it. I'm sure he did, that anything around a top 10 would have taken care of it. And yes, he had starts beyond it. But for him to do it on this stage, under these circumstances, makes him a great story. And Bud Colley is somebody, if you want to go back to his college days at the University of Alabama, he is somebody since 1980, before Q School, and how it was kind of repositioned. And it's not that it wasn't always valuable. There weren't as many cards. And every player, regardless of your pedigree or your collegiate experiences or collegiate performance, meant that you were probably going to have to go to Q School, unless you were Gary Hallberg or Ryan Moore or Phil Mickelson or Justin Leonard or Tiger Woods or Bud Colley. He figured out a way to avoid having to do that. And the fact that here he is, off of multiple years, trying to get himself physically right to just go out there and compete again, and to do what he did over the course of 4 days to now be set up for this year and next year, makes him a fantastic story. There's no doubt about it. One other thing that I wanted to mention is that you had the likes of Colin Morikawa, who found himself right on the cusp of the top 10, and you also had Patrick Cantlay, and their winless droughts persist. That continues for them. So we will see as we head to the Valspar, which will start on Thursday. You know, it's a very good field, but again, we are centered this morning on Rory McIlroy and J.J. Spaun. A couple things about the way that they've gone about doing this week, and in particular, some stats for J.J. Spaun and Rory McIlroy on the 16th hole. J.J. Spaun in round 1, birdie par par, round 2, par birdie bogey on 18. The third round, birdie bogey par, and then the final round yesterday, birdie par par. And again, those were steely pars that he made on 17 and 18, considering he had a putt on 17 in excess of 60 feet over that ridge. He cozied it up there brilliantly, and then on 18, he had that putt gutted from 30 feet. A couple more revolutions, he would have won the Players' Championship. And meanwhile, for Rory McIlroy, he's been better than anybody in this closing stretch over the last decade plus. He's also been better than anybody on the inward 9 at this stadium course. But in round 1, par par birdie. Round 2, birdie par birdie. He's been great on the 18th hole. Birdied 18 on Saturday after making bogey on 17. He had parred 16th, and then yesterday, par par par. I know he was disappointed by walking away with the par 5 16th by only making a 5. So their aggregate on the 3 holes that they will play this morning, J.J. Spaun, 2 under par for the week, and Rory McIlroy, 3 under par for the week. All right, to get some more perspective and analysis, somebody who has been a big part of the coverage all week on Golf Channel and NBC, and of course, again today, and that is John Wood. John, good morning. Thank you for taking the time. How are you, my friend?
I'm great, Gary. How are you?
I'm doing great. All right, how we got here. I was just talking to Johnson Wagner. Let me start with J.J. Spaun. What has stood out? And if you want to focus on the closing stretch yesterday, that's fine. What has stood out about his play this week?
Just how he's held up. I mean, that's so much pressure out there. He's got to win. He's obviously won on the PGA Tour before, but this is a whole new kettle of fish. And the way he's held up all week long, he's had some ups, he's had some downs. But when he's gone down, he's always been able to fight back. And that closing stretch yesterday showed what kind of mettle this kid has. It is impressive. And I think I couldn't believe how calm he seemed. I'm sure on the inside things were spinning, but he seemed very calm, very in control of his emotions, of his golf ball, of everything he wanted to do out there yesterday. And nothing rattled him.
The thing about, things that look straightforward, I think a lot of that is circumstantial. So it's all relative to where you find yourself having to do the things that he did coming down the stretch. And it's the area of his game, and I'm talking about putting and short game, chipping and putting. What he did on 16, the lag putt on 17, the putt on 18, with authority, even though it came up short. Tell me about what that said to you about him and state of mind and also body reacting on those last 3 holes.
It just looked to me like he put it in his head at the beginning of the day that I'm ready to do this. This is my time, and I'm not going to be flummoxed by everything out there. I'm going to be okay and be able to win. And I think Mark Cairns, his caddy, had a lot to do with this. He's won here. He knows what it takes down the stretch. He's been in this situation. He knows what the feelings are, and I'm sure he communicated that to J.J. down the stretch when things got tough. And even you do little things, idiosyncratically that maybe not say, hey, relax. You don't say something like that, but he'll get things to get him to relax. And I think he had a huge part in that, and I think he'll have a huge part in the playoff as well this morning.
How about Rory in terms of the closing stretch yesterday? I just pointed out par on those last 3 holes. And yes, he was in the right rough on 16, but still iron in hand to that front right pin. So it's not like he's taking that on, but nonetheless not getting up and down, hitting kind of an indifferent chip on 16. What did you see from him on the closing stretch?
It's amazing. I don't think that had anything to do necessarily with the position he was in or the situation. So many people leave that chip shot short because you look at it, you're chipping downhill towards the water. You think this has got to be fast. I don't care if there's rain or not. But that green goes back up towards the uphill at the very end, and not many people notice it. It's something after years and years and years, you keep watching, you see it over and over and over again. So I think he didn't hit that chip shot, poorly. I think he probably hit it like he wanted to, but it's so hard to get yourself to hit that hard. Because it is uphill at the end, but there's water, just that, a little bit too much, too hard, and you're in trouble. I think he hit the shot on 17. I think he landed that within a yard of where he was looking. I think it was a little bit softer. He hit it hard. He had a lot of spin on it. But I think if it takes that first skip forward, which is what he was looking for, it's within 5 feet. And I think he hit that on the button. He had a great drive on 18, maybe a wrong club on 18, but those situations you want to hit something full, you're pumped up, so that's understandable. I don't think he did anything that nerve-wise that cost him that championship. I think he executed the shots he planned. They just didn't quite turn out like he thought they would.
Johnny's had good driving weeks, and again, it's a small, finite number of starts, really. Here we are in the middle of March. He's had poor putting weeks. He's had good putting weeks, and this is one of those good putting weeks. If you're in his camp and you're looking at what he's done well going into a playoff, are you more comforted that he's had a really good putting week as opposed to a good driving week?
I think so. I think I am. The fact that he goes in with confidence, putting fixes everything, as you know. So even if he doesn't have his A ball striking this morning, the fact that he's been putting well, he's confident with it. It can fix anything that you do wrong, putting can fix. It's going to be really interesting out there this morning because we've got a completely different wind. It's northwest, it's cold, and it's still blowing 15 to 20. So same hole locations as yesterday, but completely different conditions. And it's going to be interesting because there's a whole new tactics on every single one of those shots coming in than they had yesterday. So that's going to be fascinating to watch to me.
John, all great players have gotten clipped in match play, and I'm talking about 18-hole matches. This is a 3-hole aggregate. In the event that they're still tied, they'll go back to 17, then 18 again. Rory has been clipped. Hunter Mahan got him at the match play when he had a chance to get to world number 1. Hunter was obviously one of the best players in the world. Shane Lowry clipped him when he had a modest profile. Rory's aura, is that something that, look, these guys don't go out and put mitts on and throw mitts. This is a golfer against a golfer. Does he have a persona that can affect an opponent, particularly in a finite number of holes like this?
Maybe. I don't think it's going to happen to JJ. I think some people would be affected by it, but I think the fact that you get to sleep on it, you get to kind of reset, you get to go through your full warm up. You're not jumping off 18 and running into a hole and playing him face to face right away. You've got time to kind of let your body, let your mind, let your emotions get into the right place, and hopefully you go out and have a good warm up. So I don't think JJ is going to be intimidated by that. Rory is intimidating. He's one of the best players ever. I mean, how could you not be? But I don't think JJ, just watching him yesterday, I think his emotions are in check. He knows what he wants to do, and he knows he's capable of it. You know, you might think, boy, this is Rory McIlroy. This is going to be really tough, and it will be. But you've just done it for 72 holes. What's 3 more? And I think if he can keep that mindset and just go out there and just be himself. Don't try and do something you're not capable of, which he's been great at all week long. Stay within yourself. Hit shots you're comfortable with hitting. And just see what happens after 3 holes. These conditions, it's cold. I wouldn't be surprised if 3 pars won this thing.
Johnson Wagner said Rory's got everything to lose. J.J. Spaun has nothing to lose. Do you subscribe to that narrative?
No, I don't. Only reason why is because this means so much more to J.J. And it means a lot to Rory. I'm not saying it doesn't. But this would mean so much more to J.J. than it would to Rory. And it's not even close. It's not even within the same ballpark. Rory's won 27 times. He's won this tournament. He's won 4 major championships. JJ's got 1 win on the PGA Tour. This would be life-altering in a way that it wouldn't be for Rory. So the pressure's on both of them. It's a Players' Championship. You want to win. I don't think there's any. I don't have any sense of that.
Let me ask you about these holes with this north wind. Starting with this 16th hole, do you expect less than driver from Rory McIlroy? 3-wood, obviously, he's comfortable drawing the golf ball. Do you expect him to hit less than driver on that hole?
I do, and the reason why is it's going to be so easy. It's going to be left to right helping, which means it's going to be so easy to blow a ball way through that fairway into the rough. He hit it in the rough yesterday, not too far. But if you get something riding on that wind left to right today with a little bit of help instead of hurt, it could go way in. Now, if he has a great warm-up, I'm sure he's warming up, probably hitting both left to right wind and right to left wind, maybe because he's going to have both. But if he has a really good warm-up with the driver and he's feeling comfortable turning it over and has good control on it, maybe I think he'll hit driver. If not, 3-wood is still plenty for him to take it at the corner and get a mid-iron in his hand. So, I think it all depends on the warm-up. I think he's probably come out this morning with 2 ideas, depending on how the warm-up goes. And either club he can still reach into. So I think it'll totally depend on the warm-up for him.
Last thing, the 17th hole, whether they're still tied or somebody's got a 1-shot lead, just explain to people how much more challenging that hole is playing back into now.
Oh, my gosh. Not only back into, but right to left. Yesterday they had left to right, which it's much more comfortable. You set up at the center of the green, you hit your shot, you don't have to manipulate it. It'll fall that way, and anything will take it that way. If you try and pull a Ricky Fowler this morning and hit something close to that pin, you have to start it at the water with that much crosswind. It's into, it's right to left, and that takes so much nerve. And unless you're never going to be forced to, because it's a 3-hole aggregate, even if the guy in front of you stuffs it, you can't sit there and say, okay, I've got to take a gamble here and stuff this too, because you've still got the 18th to play. I think both of them would take that ball in the dead center of that green or anywhere on the green and not even hit the shot this morning, to be honest with you. That is going to be one heck of an exciting shot.
John, thank you so much. Enjoy it.
My pleasure. Have fun watching. I will definitely.
All right, there is John Wood, Golf Channel and NBC. We take a break. Our final thoughts again, top of the hour right here on Golf Channel and on Peacock, the 3-hole aggregate playoff. Rory McIlroy, J.J. Spaun. We're back with you on 5 Clubs right after this. Back in, a couple minutes left for us. And again, coming up top of the hour, Dan Hicks, Kevin Kisner, the rest of the NBC golf team will have the playoff with Rory McIlroy and J.J. Spaun. This segment brought to you by Pinehurst, the cradle of American golf. There is always a good reason to be in Pinehurst, and they've got cottages coming to Pinehurst number 8. The clubhouse at Pinehurst number 10 is just about done, and the restaurant as well. We're just about done. And if you consider some of the guys who've been close at this championship, at this particular venue, Martin Laird, Tommy Tolles, Bob Eastwood, Scott Gump, Kevin Chappell, David Lingworth, Anirban Lahiri, Paul Goydos, it says that there are a lot of guys capable. And J.J. Spaun is very, very capable. And then on the other hand, you have Rory McIlroy. He's looking to join a list of players. If they're not already in the World Golf Hall of Fame, they could be, as far as multiple-time winners of this championship. I'm talking about the aforementioned Davis Love III and Fred Couples. Not to mention Jack Nicklaus, who won this championship 3 times, but never on the stadium course. Steve Elkington won it twice as well. If he does, in fact, go on to win it, he will head to Augusta National as not necessarily the prohibitive favorite. You can't make that declaration, but he would add bold type to one of the great resumes that we've seen, not just of his generation, but of all time. But again, this is 3 holes and against a guy who got here. And he got here because facing a 3-shot deficit with 6 holes to go, what did he do? He hit it to a foot on the 14th hole, the hardest hole, and then got up and down on 17 and 18, knowing that he needed to make pars to see this playoff. We hope you enjoy it. We're back tomorrow for a full recap. Coming up, top of the hour, just a couple minutes from now, the playoff of the 51st players. Enjoy it.